What is going on, everybody? SchwayZ here, and the vehicle behind me through that door is a 2023 C8 Corvette Z06. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you 4 reasons why that vehicle is better than a Ferrari. Now, before we get started, I do want to extend a huge thank you to Jerry Seiner Chevrolet for giving me the opportunity to review this Z06 Corvette for you all today. If you guys are in the market for any new or used vehicle, make sure you reach out to them. I'm going to put their information down in the description below. And one interesting thing to mention is they do not charge markups on their inventory. So even though you may have to wait a little while to take delivery, you will not be paying over MSRP. Okay, so about the C8 Z06, this is kind of a unicorn because, well, unless you're like a multimillionaire or you happen to be one of the lucky few that have ordered this on the day the order banks open, you're likely not going to find one. There's a ton of people out there paying large markups over MSRP to get one of these, but this vehicle is not, because this is going to the original order holder and they're paying MSRP for it. And just to give you a summary of what that is, the MSRP of this vehicle is $151,520. And this color is hypersonic gray. But before we get into the nitty gritty, what exactly is the Z06? Well, if you guys are familiar with Corvette lineage, that is kind of the performance package or trim level of the Corvette lineup. It actually traces its lineage all the way back to the 1960s where the first Z06 came out. And this is the latest and greatest version of the C8 Stingray with the Z06 package, and it really is glorious. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you 4 reasons why this is actually better than a Ferrari. And the first reason has to do with what's under the hood, or in this case, the trunk. Okay, now unfortunately, with this one being a convertible, I can't actually see into the engine bay, but that doesn't mean I can't talk about it, because the engine here is really the most important part of the Z06. This vehicle comes with a 5.5 liter naturally aspirated V8 that produces a whopping 670 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. This thing is called the LT6 engine, and you can't get this on any other vehicle. Chevy actually says this is the most powerful V8 engine in any production car, and honestly, this is probably the pinnacle of engineering in terms of producing a naturally aspirated engine. I think this may be the last of its kind as we transition into electric future. They're not really going to be making engines like this, and I think this is kind of the ultimate grade A example of what we could do with naturally aspirated engines. Again, there's no turbocharging or supercharging here. Now, one big change to this engine is there's no longer a push rod system like you find in the conventional Stingray C8 Corvette. This is actually a double overhead cam. And the other major difference between this and the regular C8 Corvette and pretty much most American vehicles is this vehicle comes with a flat plane crank. Now, for those of you that don't know what that is, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to give you the specifics on it, but the difference is most vehicles, including my Hellcat out there, have a cross plane crank where the crankshaft is actually in kind of a cross-like pattern, and you have different counterweights to be able to balance the crankshaft in the engine. This, on the other hand, like many other supercars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, has a flat plane crank where it does not require counterweights and allows you to get a more balanced engine and also a more lightweight engine. And for that reason, you're actually able to put more airflow into the vehicle, and due to the less rotational mass, you can actually get a higher RPM. So this thing actually redlines at 8,600 RPM. That's much higher than most performance vehicles on the market outside of Ferraris and Lamborghinis. That is how this vehicle is able to produce 670 horsepower. More airflow means more horsepower. The downside to a flat plane crank is you don't really get as much torque figures, because a regular cross plane crank like the one in my Hellcat has higher torque figures, and that's just because of the way the engineering of the flat plane crank, you just don't get that low end torque, and that's why this one actually has very similar torque figures to the current generation C8 Stingray at 460 pound-feet. But when you get this thing in the higher RPM ranges, this thing is going to sound like no other Corvette on the market. That is really where the flat plane crank excels, and that is why they used it in this application. But a lot of people don't mention that this is not the only American vehicle that has a flat plane crank. The Ford GT350 from like 5 or 6 years ago also came with a similar styled flat plane crank and also sounded really good. But I really liked they included that in this vehicle, kind of giving it a European style engine that you don't really find common amongst American vehicles. Okay, so I've talked up this engine so much, let's talk about the specs. 0 to 60, 2.6 seconds. 10.5-second quarter mile, and a top speed of 195 miles per hour. All of the power from that engine is sent to an 8-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. Now all of that power is sent to the rear wheels, and we're talking 345 millimeter wide tires in the back. That's got to be probably the largest I've seen on really any vehicle. You've got 21-inch wheels in the back, 20-inch wheels in the front for a staggered setup, and that's able to propel this vehicle that quick 0 to 60. Now this particular vehicle in front of me does have the carbon ceramic brake option, which was about an $8,500 option. But you can also get carbon fiber wheels on the Z06. This one does not have that, but that is also an additional option. That's one thing that you can actually be sure about on the Z06 is this thing can come packaged and equipped with a bunch of different options. It's very customizable as long as you have enough money to spend for that. Now, the advantage of this over a Ferrari is the newest Ferrari, the F8, actually doesn't come with a naturally aspirated engine anymore. The F8 actually has a twin turbocharged 3.9 liter, and this is a naturally aspirated 5.5 liter. So that is why this C06 Corvette is actually better than a Ferrari. Okay, now the second reason why it's better than a Ferrari is, well, it's just more practical. First off, let's talk about design, because they did update the design compared to the regular C8 Stingray. It's about 3 inches wider, or 3.6 inches actually wider, especially in the back, as compared to the regular Stingray. The front end looks a little bit different. You have a wider front splitter, bigger air intakes over here. It does look really, really mean. Personally, I think this does look better than the regular C8 Corvette because it's a little bit more proportional, not just in the front end, but mostly in the back end. The back end of the C8 kind of looked a little bit odd, but this one with the Z06 with the wider fender flares, the bigger spoiler, just looks a little bit better. And you also have this wing over here on the side that's a little bit different. The regular C8 kind of just wraps around, that's it. This one has this longer extension over here, and then of course this is wider as well to be able to accommodate for greater airflow for that high revving, big air sucking 5.5 liter V8. And coming to the back, again, it's also wider back here because they had to do that to accommodate for the wider tires, the more airflow. And the back end looks really good as well. Look at that spoiler over here. Looks really, really nice. And it is body color, but you can get a bunch of different types. You can get a carbon fiber, you can get the Z07 package, which has a much larger spoiler as well. But proportionally, I just think this looks better in the Z06 package as compared to the regular one. Another thing to mention back here is you do have 4 exhaust ports. Now, you do have 4 on the regular C8, but they're off to the sides. This one, it's centered in the middle, and it looks a lot better. But like I noted earlier, the main advantage here compared to, say, a Ferrari is the fact that you have practicality here. So this is your trunk, and it's a little bit different than the C8 Corvette with the hardtop, because the hardtop is meant to fit there. This being a convertible, you don't really need that. So this can just be used for storage space entirely. So technically you have a little bit more storage space than the hardtop C8 because you don't have to fit a roof in here. But on top of that, you also have a frunk, or a front trunk, because some people get angry when I say frunk. And by pushing the button located underneath here, underneath the headlight, you can open up your trunk, and also a pretty large amount of space. I mean, I think Chevy prides itself in the fact that you can actually fit golf clubs in the back. That's not something you can always do in a Ferrari, so that is a major advantage to the C8 Corvette Z06. And you know, the interior is no worse than something you'd find out of a supercar like a Ferrari. You do have this beautiful stitching over here. Now this is kind of the top of the level trim spec, so this is going to have everything you want. You've got memory seats, a premium audio system, you've got carbon fiber package on the entire interior, and that's one of the big benefits of getting a Z06 is you can option for this carbon fiber package. And there's carbon fiber around the screen in the middle for the instrument gauge cluster. The steering wheel has carbon fiber all throughout. You've got carbon fiber around the seats over here near the headrest. The entire thing is just beautiful with that carbon fiber interior. Again, very reminiscent of something you'd find out of a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. Now you still have the same interior for the most part. It's an 8-inch touchscreen over here, a 12-inch all digital instrument gauge cluster display over there. You do have some Z06 badges over here with a speaker grille, and just a very recognizable interior. I actually recently reviewed a C8 Corvette, and it looks almost identical to this aside from a few little appointments here and there, and of course the carbon fiber touches. But this fighter jet type of interior is definitely something you would also find in a supercar like a Ferrari F8. Now for the third reason this is better than a Ferrari, we're actually going to jump inside because we're going to talk about some of the features of this vehicle that a lot of the other competitors at this price point, if there really is one, don't have. So talking about the features, this thing does come with a 14 speaker premium Bose sound system. You've also got got a 360-degree camera. So by pushing this button over here, you can turn on your front camera, and then you can cycle through all the different camera angles from the front splitter to the rear end to the sides. I mean, this thing is covered in cameras. Again, not something you can always find in something like a Ferrari. You also have something called the axle lift system. So by pushing this button over here, the front of your vehicle will actually raise so that you're able to, pull into parking spots or driveways that are kind of steep. That is really nice, especially because you do not want to scrape that front splitter, especially if you got the carbon fiber splitter as well. You also have amazing luxurious amenities like heated and ventilated front driver and passenger seats, and you have a wireless charger located right back here. And did I even mention this thing has a heated steering wheel? And also take a look at these carbon fiber paddle shifters. This thing's so cool. I mean, there's things that you can discover for days inside this vehicle, but really great amenities, and everything is so premium. I mean, everything here is soft touch. You've got stitching, you got more of that carbon fiber that wraps around all of the edges. And if you guys are familiar with the interior of the C8, there are so many edges here. I mean, look at how that carbon fiber just wraps around from the door panel into the dashboard. Now, the other thing that I kind of glazed over is this does have a 12-inch all-digital display, and this is something I showed off in the C8 Corvette I reviewed, but still really nice to have in a vehicle like this that's really tuned for performance. You also have this 8-inch touchscreen over here, which is really nice. It's a little bit on the smaller side, which is something I mentioned before, but hey, you still have it. I mean, a lot of these super performance vehicles cut out, a lot of things like heated seats and ventilated seats. You can even option a Porsche without air conditioning in order to save weight. But this thing, on the other hand, has every luxurious feature you would expect from like a Cadillac, and yet you also have the performance of a Ferrari. It's really the best of both worlds. The other thing to mention is this is a hardtop convertible. A lot of times you try to go for soft top to reduce weight, but I think Chevy knows the target demographic of this vehicle is they want a performance vehicle, but they don't want any sacrifices. And this is a hardtop convertible that with just a push of a button, it will fold behind the seats and give you an amazing open air experience inside the Corvette. So really no compromises in this vehicle. I mean, there are really just so many amenities inside this vehicle that you will not find in something like a Ferrari, because a lot of times they just have to cut weight in order to improve performance. But Chevy says, why can't you just have both? Now, the fourth and final reason why this is better than a Ferrari is really because of the pricing. Let's briefly talk about that. So the starting price of the Z06 is $105,300. Now that is for the 1LZ, so that's the lowest trim level. You're not going to get heated seats, anything like that, but you will still get a head-up display. Now, if you option for the 3LZ, which is the top of the line, similar to the 3LT that you would find in the conventional Stingray Corvette, that one will top you out around $119,650. Now, there are additional packages, of course, that you can get on top of that. There's also a Z07 package, which costs about $9,000, but adds a lot of performance amenities like magnetic ride control, dampening system that actually reads the road and adjusts the dampers to be able to have the utmost performance. You'll also get performance traction management with the Z07 package, carbon ceramic brakes similar to what this has, but this does not actually have the Z07 package with it. You'll also get Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires if you choose the Z07 package, and there's also additional packages that you'll unlock if you choose the Z07, a lot of which are carbon fiber related. So you can actually top this vehicle above $170,000. Like I said, this one's around $150,000, and well, let's not even talk about markups, because if you happen to find these on the secondhand market, or maybe a dealership that's not honoring MSRP, you're looking at probably a 10, 20, 30, maybe even up to $100,000 markup on one of these vehicles. But markups excluded, price is the fourth reason why this is better than an F8 Ferrari. Okay, well, there you have it, folks. That was 4 reasons why the Z06 Corvette may be a better choice than a Ferrari. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I know a lot of people who don't even like the C8, but they love the Z06. So I think this thing is going to sell amazingly well. And I also think it's probably going to keep its value really well, just because of how much demand there is for this vehicle and how impressed people are with this particular car. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also, check me out on all the social media down in the description below. And as always, everybody, I hope you stay SchwayZ, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.